Good morning, people. It is 10 o'clock here in the great state of Texas. Take two of this commentary. So what are we doing? As you can see from the intro, we are doing an epoxy bowl, using some scrap, using some red glitter, and pretty much every glitter that I have in my arsenal. Green, we just saw the red. Throw in some green, some Ninja Turtle neon green in there, and we're going to make the biggest bowl that I have ever made. So throw in some of this like red flake, this purple flake. It's going to look crazy. It's going to look like... it's going to look amazing. I don't know. It kind of looks like a little bit of, I don't know. That does not look cool. But here we go. Pouring it in. You guys seen me build these bowls before, so you guys don't need to see the actual scrap portion of it. And I'm using a 5-quart bucket on this one. Not the, if you saw my previous video where I used that like dollar store tub, used the 5-quart on this one because this one's a little bit more hefty, so I didn't want to have any overpour on this one. So I ended up putting it in the pressure pot 4.5 hours later. I'm thinking I poured more than enough epoxy in it, but when I got it out of the bin, as you'll see here, lots of gaps. I don't know what the deal with this is. I don't know if it is like by the time I put the epoxy into the pressure pot and the pressure pot settles everything down, it just creates these gaps or mashes everything down. I'm assuming that's what's happening, because this was not cool. So I debated between just doing, leaving it like that or coming back and adding more epoxy. And I was like, no, screw that. I'm going for the biggest bowl I've ever made. And I came back and I hit it with some more epoxy. It's going to be a double layer. I know I'm starting to become a big fan of these layered epoxy bowls. And I'm probably going to do a lot more of those in the future. So going for that cool effect of just having the 2 layers of distinct epoxy. So I just decided to come back and hit it with more epoxy. If you can't fix anything, fix it with more epoxy. That's what I'm starting to learn. So here we are getting every single ounce out of this. And now we are well filled up. So 3.5 hours later into the pressure pot, took everything out. And as you'll see here in just a little bit, got nice, even layered of epoxy on epoxy, so we don't have any gaps. However, you'll see a little bit later there was a little bit of a problem. So out of the pressure pot, we can see here we got 2 distinct layers. We got a little bit more red, we got a little bit less red. I think I added dye and coloring to the top layer. Obviously, it was a little bit more see-through on the bottom, but I'm going, okay, this is glittery, it's shiny, all the cool little flakes are on the bottom. We're probably not going to be able to see those, but I'm like, okay, that's not a big deal. We can take care of that. We can take care of that. So here we are, getting this waste block off. I put this down because when I put it in the pressure pot, I put some weights because I was worried about floating, because not everything fit in the 5-quart bucket exactly how initially I had it. So here we are, trying to get this waste block off. It's chipping off. It's horrible pine wood that I bought from Home Depot, so not the highest quality of materials here on my channel. So super glued the hell out of that waste block that I ended up putting on top and with the faceplate, getting everything nice and bolted down. As I heard in another video, still using the same screws. This is like Project 22 we're still using. So got everything nice, evened up. Now we're just putting everything on the lathe. It's a monster. This is a monster plank. It's absolutely huge. So got everything pinned down, and I had a comment about being able to tie down or bolt down my lathe so it doesn't dance. I put some blocks on the back and on the side to prevent any kind of like movement on the lathe. Thank you for that tip. I finally have figured out how to do it effectively. So unlike all my other projects where the lathe like literally tries to dance off the table, everything is nice and stable at this point, and I don't have to worry about it just literally moving and shaking all over the workbench and making my life absolutely hell. So thank you for that tip. So here we are in our typical fashion, getting that top superficial layer off using the carbide. This is using the bowl gouge just to kind of rough the edges, get everything nice and even, make a nice round bottom that we typically will like. Coming back, hitting it with the round carbide tool, and just get everything nice and neat and even. We're getting good shavings, as you can see. It's getting all over my arm there. I'm doing this project in March. You guys probably aren't going to see this until September, more than likely. So it was kind of chilly-willy. Texas weather in the springtime kind of is hot, cold, rain, snows, and tornadoes all on the same day. So that's why I'm, wearing a long-sleeve shirt. And a lot of woodworkers say don't wear long sleeves around a lathe. I tend to agree, safety first. However, I'm taking my life into my own hands, people. It'll be fine. So once we got that all finished and done, I started to notice that, there was a bit of a gap on the top portion where the headstock is. So here I am just getting that round bottom all completed and done. And in the back of my mind, I'm trying to think, what am I going to do for this giant gap? See, I don't know. I'm going to show it here in a little bit. We're going to show it here in a little bit. So trying to get as much material off on that top portion, because what I'm thinking initially is, okay, how deep is it? Because it's kind of hard to tell. And it was pretty deep, even though I kind of already knew that. But I didn't want to put it back in the pressure pot again. I already had it on the lathe. I kind of wanted to work everything out the way it already is. So here we are, just trying to make everything nice and even as possible before we end up flipping it on the chuck and making mortise out of it. Getting good shavings, like I said, real nice and even. And here's this spot where I guess epoxy didn't get into, and I'm going, okay. It's a little deep, as you can tell, and what I wish I would have done was just leave it, because it would have came out absolutely fine. So what I ended up doing was taking a hot glue gun, making a reservoir on the top. Sorry for burping on the camera. Sorry. Making a reservoir on top, and then pouring 15-minute epoxy inside of it, just to try to get a quick fix. And it doesn't look like the rest of the bowl, but it doesn't look too bad either. But the problem with that 15-minute epoxy, let me tell you, it does not cure in 15 minutes. It doesn't even harden in 15 minutes. It's still gooey and like plasticky. Next time I'm just going to use regular epoxy, or I'm just going to leave it. So here we are, got this behemoth going, trying to make that mortise on the round portion of it. This part went relatively easy, but I was afraid of the bottom part because it was all pine. So once I started to try to fit the chuck, I realized, okay, it's all going to be pine, which is a bit of a problem because pine is a very soft wood, and I was worried once I put it and reversed it into the chuck that it wasn't going to be as stable as it was. But surprisingly, it was very stable, and it did not fly off the lathe one time. So if you're waiting for something to fly off the lathe, joke's on you, it didn't. So here we are taking the waste block off. This part came off relatively easy, and I need to get my ass a new damn hot glue gun, because using that small little glue gun that I got, it takes forever to get the hot glue done. And you want to use a lot of glue because this stuff will fly off the lathe. So that red streak that you see there, that's tape. So I didn't want to wait for the epoxy, that 15-minute epoxy that I used, that little part, to get hardened. So I was like, and I didn't want it to fly out because it actually ended up kind of congealing and coming out of that little hole. So I just put some tape on top of it to prevent it from flying out. So I was like, okay, we'll give it some more time to kind of harden up. And it didn't, because 3 hours later, this thing was still trying to give me problems. So here we are, getting the lip of the bowl, shaped the way that we like, getting everything nice and even before we start the actual gouging portion of the bowl. Sharpen the tools, as you know, really good about doing that now. I'm just going to sharpen every time I do a new project, which I probably should have been doing a long time ago, because it's just so much easier when the tools are sharp. Nobody likes a dull chisel, because it does not work as effectively. So here we are, just trying to get that superficial portion of the faceplate, or that superficial layer of the bowl off before we start the gouging portion of it. And that'll make this part a little bit easier. So I had a little bit of chip, came back, just worked the edges on that. You didn't really see that in the video. So here we are, just blowing through the middle of this pine board, just absolutely destroying it with this bowl gouge. It is sharp, it is sharpened up, using that Wolverine sharpening system, which I can't say enough good things about. It's absolutely wonderful. And now we're just getting the bottom portion of it dug out the way that we want, trying to hit a nice depth. Even though the tools were sharp, I'm starting to learn that the actual epoxy itself is a bit of a problem. And I say that because I'm starting to realize, the deeper the pour, the more problems I typically will have. And I think that's what's causing some problems that I'm having as far as chatter, as far as glass type epoxy instead of getting nice ribbons out. You can see here, all that chatter is just from just hitting the epoxy. And I'm assuming it's not the chisel. The chisel is sharp. It could be technique, but I think it's just the pour of this epoxy is just too deep. And that's what's typically giving me a lot of problems. So I was kind of frustrated with that, kind of aggravated, but I was like, okay, we can salvage this project, because I'm really good at doing that. As the years have gone on and the months and the projects, I've gotten a lot better about salvaging these projects, doing really well and doing a lot better work. If you're interested in to see what my bowls used to look like before I got this good, and I'm not saying I'm a master woodworker or bowl turner, but I am significantly better than when I first started. Go back and watch some of my early videos from like my first year on YouTube. Absolute dog shit type of projects. But this one actually turned out really well. It wasn't my most favorite project. I was kind of like frustrated the day I made this bowl, but overall I was really happy with it. So here we are just trying to hit that depth, hit the basement as far as we can go before we punch through the mortise itself. And, up until this point, things are going pretty well. I'm going to come back and hit it with a combination of the square carbide tool and the round carbide tool, just trying to get that nice lip edge finish before we end up starting the sanding portion of it. And I start and stop a couple of times just because you try to get a feel of that lip. You want it as nice and even as possible, and you can sometimes feel ridges when you're doing this. But overall, this is going fairly well for me. Doing pretty good, not having a lot of issues up in this point. I'm pretty confident that we're going to get a pretty good, decent bowl out of this by this time in the project. So here we are, just finally hitting that edge where it had a little bit of chip out, and just taking very small, gentle strokes. Gentle strokes is what you want, gentle strokes. But at the same time, I'm deadly afraid that this thing is going to fly off the lathe and hit me in the face. That's why you should always wear your face shield, people. Wear your face protection. Anyway, so then we stop it, and I try to put my hand in the lathe, as you just saw there, and I'm like, eeh, grief. So here we are, done with the project, done with the gouging. Everything's looking nice and neat. There's all the wood shavings all over the garage. There's the ring light that gets in the way, and this thing is a beast. It's huge. At least for my lathe work, this is pretty big. I know people make much larger projects, but that one's huge for me. So, you didn't see it, but what I'm doing here with the flat skew is getting that like Play-Doh stupid 15-minute epoxy pimple off this bowl, because that's what it ended up happening. So just taking that flat skew and just getting everything nice and even cut down. Not doing anything too fancy before we start the sanding portion of it. So once we get that all done and taken care of, now we're just doing what we typically will do. Large sheets of sandpaper going all the way from 320 up to 1500 grit. And then we're going to come back and hit it with that micro mesh. Make everything nice, shiny, and polished. And nice and even, as we typically will do in these projects. And you can tell there, this is going to be a banger. Absolutely looking shined up, glistened up. And then we're going to hit it with that special wood wax that I love so much, that does such spectacular work. Makes everything nice and even, and shining it all up, making that pine pop, making that epoxy pop, making everything pop. So I hope you guys are enjoying these projects. I really enjoy making them. You guys are probably watching this in September, like I said. Finish this one at the middle of March. It's March 16th when I'm doing this commentary. Look at that thing. Looking absolutely beautiful in the sun. Gorgeous. And it was windy this day, so that zoom in that you just saw right there, that was actually the wind blowing over this actual thing. So hope you guys enjoyed the project. Hope everybody's doing well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share, all that other good stuff that every other YouTuber always says. Looking absolutely stunning. Looks absolutely gorgeous. Hope you guys like the project. Don't forget to subscribe as always. And I'll see you guys in the next project. Here it is. Finally done. Peace. Okay, so the project is done. Not my favorite project that I've ever done, but it looks similar to some bowls I've done in the past. But the scale and size of it is probably what is most intriguing. So there it is, all completed, finally done. There's still that fresh wood wax on it, so you kind of get a little bit of smearing, and Lubbock wind almost blew it off the stand. But overall, I'm really happy with the way it went. It looks really good. The sparkles, all that good stuff. It just looks amazing. Sanding was kind of an issue, but overall, really happy with the way it turned out. Look, it's just a behemoth. It's just massive. And this layering that we're doing looks really good as well. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Today is what? It's still March. It's still March here in Texas. It's March 16th. So you guys will probably see this in September. So I hope everybody's having a good late summer. It's probably gonna be 1,000,000,000 degrees up until like October, November here in Texas. So there it is, all done. Sparkle double layered bowl. Not too bad. So hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. Still trying to hit 1,000 before the end of the year. And I'll see you guys in the next project. Peace.